Be me, 34 years old, sitting in my therapist's office for the third time this month. She's asking me again about processing my feelings. I don't want to process anything. I want to go back 11 years and shake myself until my teeth rattle. Let me explain how I got here. When I was 23, I had everything figured out. Worked at a non-profit focusing on women's workplace equality. Had a boyfriend, Andrew, who was honestly pretty decent. We'd been together 2 years. He was one of those guys who actually listened, you know? Cooked dinner, supported my career, didn't expect me to perform femininity. Then I got pregnant. Felt like the world stopped. Stared at that test in the bathroom of my shared apartment for like 20 minutes. My roommate Sarah knocked on the door asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was furious. Not at Andrew, at biology, at the cosmic joke that only women have to deal with this. At every man who ever got to have unprotected sex and just walk away. At the entire structure that makes pregnancy a woman's problem, told Andrew that night. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Okay, what do you want to do? Not, we should keep it. Not, let me tell you what I think. Just what do you want?" I told him I was getting an abortion. He nodded, asked if I wanted him to come with me. I said yes. He took off work, drove me there, held my hand in the waiting room. But here's the thing. The whole time I wasn't thinking about whether I wanted kids someday. I was thinking about principles, about how motherhood is used to trap women, about how every woman I knew who had kids saw her career stall. About my own mother, who was brilliant and ended up managing a household instead of the career she wanted. I'd spent years watching women in my office get passed over after maternity leave, watched them come back exhausted, pumping in bathroom stalls, watched them slowly fade from the ambitious people they were, watched the men get promoted while the women got mommy tracked. At the non-profit, I met so many women with stories. Women who were forced into motherhood, women who lost themselves, women who were just expected to sacrifice everything. Their bodies, careers, dreams, identities. All for a biological function they didn't choose. I'd read all the theory, sat in so many meetings talking about reproductive labor, about how capitalism depends on women's unpaid domestic work, about how the nuclear family structure serves patriarchy, about how motherhood under current conditions is inherently oppressive. So when I was in that position myself, there was only one answer that made sense. I wasn't going to be another woman who gave up everything. I wasn't going to let biology dictate my life path. I wasn't going to participate in the system. The abortion itself was fine. I mean physically uncomfortable, but nothing terrible. Andrew stayed with me after, brought me soup, put on my favorite movies. I felt relieved, like I'd dodged a bullet, like I'd stood up for myself, told a few close friends. They were all supportive. Sarah said she was proud of me for knowing what I wanted. My friend Jennifer said she'd done the same thing at 22. Everyone agreed I'd made the right choice. Went back to work after a few days, threw myself into a new project about wage gaps. Dated Andrew for another year before we broke up. It was amicable, we just wanted different things. He mentioned maybe wanting kids eventually. I told him that was never happening for me. He understood, we hugged, that was that. Spent my 20s building my career, moved to a better position at a larger organization, started making decent money, traveled, had relationships with men who were on the same page about being child-free. Felt free. Felt like I'd escaped the traps so many women fall into. My sister got pregnant at 26. I watched her belly grow, watched her slow down at her job, watched her talk about nursery colors and baby names, felt a weird mix of pity and superiority. Told myself I was glad that wasn't me. She had the baby, a girl. I visited in the hospital, held my niece for exactly 5 minutes. She was wrinkly and red and screamed a lot. I handed her back, felt nothing except relief that I could leave. My sister's life changed completely. No more spontaneous plans. Everything revolved around nap schedules and feeding times. She went back to work part-time. Her husband didn't change his schedule at all, literally proved every point I'd ever made. I'd visit and watch her exhaustion, the spit up on her clothes, the way she'd zone out mid-conversation, the way her whole personality became mom. Exactly what I'd avoided. Meanwhile, I got promoted, started leading my own team, spoke at conferences, published articles about workplace equality, everything I'd wanted, dated a guy named David for 3 years in my late 20s. He was also firmly child-free. We'd go to dinner and smugly watch stressed parents with screaming kids. We'd sleep in on weekends. We'd talk about how we'd opted out of the whole system, how we were living intentionally. Broke up with David when I was 30. He wanted to move across the country for work. I didn't want to give up my position, so we ended it. Another thing I didn't have to compromise on because I didn't have kids. started dating less seriously, focused more on work, joined boards, networked, built my reputation, felt successful, felt like I'd won. Then last year, just after I turned 33, started having weird symptoms, irregular periods, hot flashes, mood swings, thought maybe I was stressed. Went to my doctor, she ran some tests, called me back in to discuss results. Her face had that professional sympathy look, you know the one. Your FSH and AMH levels indicate premature ovarian failure. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means you're experiencing early menopause. Your ovaries are no longer functioning normally. You're infertile. Felt like the room tilted. But I'm 33. It's rare, but it happens. Sometimes it's genetic, sometimes environmental, sometimes we don't know why. In your case, we're not sure of the cause. I sat there processing. So I can't have kids. The chances of natural conception are extremely low. Even with IVF, the success rates would be minimal. You'd likely need donor eggs if you wanted to pursue pregnancy. I left that appointment in a daze, sat in my car for an hour, told myself it didn't matter, I never wanted kids anyway. This changed nothing, but something felt different, like a door had been opened and now it was locked. Before it was my choice, now it wasn't. Tried to ignore it. Went back to work, told no one, kept going to meetings, writing emails, managing my team. But something was shifting inside. Started noticing pregnant women everywhere. On the subway, in coffee shops, walking down the street. Felt this weird ache in my chest. My sister had a second baby, another girl. I held this one longer, studied her tiny fingers, her perfect little ears, felt something crack inside me. My niece from before was now 6. She drew me a picture of us together. 2 stick figures holding hands. Wrote Auntie in wobbly letters. I cried in my car after that visit, started thinking about the abortion, something I hadn't really thought about in years. Did the math. That child would be 10 now, would be in elementary school, would be drawing me pictures, would be calling me mom. Told myself to stop. I'd made the right choice. I hadn't wanted to be a mother. I'd wanted my career. I had my career. So why did I feel like this? Therapy started around then. My therapist asks careful questions about what I'm feeling, about what I want, about grief. I don't want to call it grief. I made a choice. You can't grieve something you actively chose not to have. That doesn't make sense. But then why do I cry when I'm alone? Why do I scroll through photos of my nieces? Why did I start following all these mum accounts online? Why do I feel this emptiness? One day my sister asked if I wanted to babysit. I said yes immediately, spent the whole day with my nieces, read them books, played pretend, made them lunch. They fought over who got to sit in my lap. When my sister picked them up, the apartment felt so quiet, so empty. I sat on the couch and sobbed. Started thinking more about the math. If I'd kept that pregnancy, I'd have a 10-year-old. If I'd gotten pregnant at 25, I'd have an 8-year-old. At 27, a 6-year-old. At 29, a 4-year-old. I'd had so many years. At 30, when I broke up with David, I was still fertile. Could have found someone who wanted kids. Could have made that choice. Could have had years to figure it out. But I'd been so certain, so ideologically committed, so sure that motherhood was a trap. And maybe it is. Maybe everything I believed was true. Maybe women do sacrifice their careers. Maybe the structure is unfair. Maybe biology is used against us. But maybe I could have navigated that. Maybe I could have been one of the ones who made it work. Maybe I was capable enough, resourceful enough. Maybe I could have had both. Or maybe I would have been fine with choosing motherhood. Actually fine, not coerced fine. Maybe I would have loved it. Maybe I would have found meaning there. But I never gave myself the chance to find out. I decided at 23 that I knew exactly who I'd be forever. I let theory override any actual reflection on what I wanted. I let principles make my choices for me. Went to a work event last month. Networking thing. Started talking to this guy, Peter. He was smart, funny. We clicked. He asked me out. We dated for a few weeks. It was going well. Then one night over dinner, he mentioned wanting kids someday. Said he was getting to the age where he was thinking about it seriously, watching his friends become dads, wanting that for himself. I told him I couldn't have kids. He said that was okay. There were other options. Adoption, fostering, donor eggs. If we got serious, we could figure it out. I should have felt relieved. Here was a solution. Here was someone open to alternatives. But all I could think was, it's not the same, which is crazy. I'd spent years arguing that biological parenthood isn't special, that it's a social construct, that adoptive parents are just as much real parents, and I believe that. I do. But for me, in this moment, I wanted to experience pregnancy. I wanted to grow a person inside me. I wanted to give birth. I wanted to nurse. I wanted all the things I'd dismissed as biological essentialism. Ended things with Peter after a month. Told him I wasn't ready for a relationship, which was true, but not the real reason. The real reason was I couldn't stand looking at him and thinking about what I couldn't give him. Had a session with my therapist where I finally broke down. Told her everything. About the abortion. About my beliefs. About my certainty. About my infertility. About the regret eating me alive. "Do you think you made the wrong choice?" she asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say I'd ruined my life, but it was more complicated. I think I made the only choice I could make with who I was then. I was so sure that wanting motherhood meant weakness, meant giving in, meant betraying everything I believed. And now I think I was so busy fighting the system that I didn't think about what I actually wanted. I let ideology make my decisions. I was so afraid of being trapped that I trapped myself differently. She nodded. "What would you say to your 23-year-old self?" I thought about it. I'd tell her that fighting oppressive structures and wanting to be a mother aren't mutually exclusive. I'd tell her that she can acknowledge the problems with how motherhood functions under patriarchy and still choose it. I'd tell her that sometimes the radical choice isn't the obvious one. I'd tell her to actually think about what she wants, not what she should want. Would she listen? I laughed bitterly. No. She'd think I was brainwashed. She'd think I'd internalized patriarchy. She'd think I was a traitor to women. She'd pity me. And that's the thing, the worst part. 23-year-old me would be disgusted by current me, would see my regret as proof that I was weak, that I'd bought into the biological imperative narrative, that I'd let myself be conditioned. She wouldn't see that maybe, just maybe. I'd been so defensive about choice that I'd stopped actually choosing. I'd been so committed to one narrative that I'd ignored my own complexity. My sister came over last week, brought the girls. We sat in my living room while they played. She knows about the infertility now. She was kind about it. Didn't say, "I told you so," even though she could have. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked her. "Having kids?" She thought about it. "Sometimes I miss my old life. The freedom, the simplicity. But no, I don't regret them, even with all the hard parts." "But your career?" She shrugged. "I have a career. It's not the one I thought I'd have. But I'm happy. I know you think I settled, but I didn't. I chose this." And the thing is, I'd never believed her before. Always thought she was making excuses. Convincing herself she was happy with less. But looking at her now, watching her with her daughters, I saw something I'd missed. She was happy. Genuinely, actually happy. Not in spite of being a mother. Not by making peace with sacrifice. But because she'd found meaning there. And maybe she'd also found frustration and exhaustion and inequality. Maybe she dealt with all the systemic problems I'd identified, but she'd decided it was worth it. She'd made an actual choice, not a theoretical one. One of my nieces climbed into my lap. "Auntie, why are you sad?" I didn't know I was crying. "I'm not sad, sweetie." "You look sad." She hugged me. Little 6-year-old arms around my neck. Completely unself-conscious affection. And I realized, this is what I missed. Not motherhood in the abstract, not the theoretical experience, but this. This specific human connection, this particular love. After they left, I sat with it. The grief, the regret, the anger at myself, the anger at the ideology that I'd let override my own complexity. Because here's what I'd figured out. All my beliefs about systemic problems were still true. Women do face impossible choices. Motherhood under capitalism and patriarchy is structured unfairly. Biology is used to limit women's opportunities. All of that was and is real. But I'd taken those true observations and used them to make a choice I didn't actually examine. I'd been so afraid of being a woman who regretted not having a career that I became a woman who regrets not having a child. And the really bitter part, I could have had both. It would have been harder. It would have required support and resources and luck. But I had those things. I had Andrew who was supportive. I had a decent job with benefits. I had savings. I had family nearby. Instead, I made a choice based on principle, based on what I thought a strong feminist should want, based on proving something to myself and the world. And now I'm here. Successful career? Check. Financial independence? Check. No children to trap me? Check. Complete reproductive freedom? Check. So why do I feel like I've lost everything that matters? My therapist asks if I've considered donor eggs, or adoption, or fostering. I have. I've looked into all of it, but there's something about the finality of my infertility, about the door being permanently closed. That's made me realize something. I don't just want to raise a child, I want to have had the choice. I want to have had the years of possibility. I want to have been able to change my mind. And I did change my mind. Too late, but I did. Turns out people are allowed to grow and shift and want different things at different times. Who knew? Went to another work event this week. Same kind of thing. Networking, small talk. Ended up talking to this younger woman, maybe 25. She mentioned she was engaged. I asked about wedding plans. She said they were waiting. Focusing on careers first. Maybe getting married in a few years. Definitely no kids for a long time. Maybe never. And I heard myself in her. That certainty. That clear vision of what she wanted. That commitment to a particular path. I almost said something. Almost told her my story. Almost warned her that certainty at 25 might not last. That she might change. That she should keep her options open. But then I stopped. Because what would I even say? Don't have strong beliefs about what you want. Don't commit to anything because you might regret it. Make choices based on a future self you can't predict. That's not advice. That's just my grief talking. So instead, I smiled and said that sounded like a good plan. And I meant it, because maybe for her it is. Maybe she won't change her mind. Maybe she'll be 40 and perfectly happy with her choices. Maybe she's actually listening to herself in a way I wasn't. The thing I keep coming back to, sitting here in therapy, sitting alone in my apartment, sitting with this weight in my chest, is that I thought I was making an empowered choice. I thought I was taking control of my body and my future. I thought I was standing up to oppression, and maybe in some ways I was. But I was also running scared. Scared of becoming my mother. Scared of losing myself. Scared of being trapped. Scared of being like every woman I'd seen consumed by motherhood. I made a choice out of fear. Dressed it up in political language. Convinced myself it was about principles. But it was just fear. And now I'm left with a different kind of trap. The trap of permanent consequences. The trap of a decision I can't undo. The trap of watching everyone else have the thing. I didn't know I wanted until it was too late. My sister is pregnant again. 3rd kid. She told me last week. I congratulated her. Meant it and didn't mean it. I'll love this baby too. I'll be the fun aunt. I'll show up for birthdays and holidays. I'll be present in their lives. But I'll also go home alone. To my nice apartment with my successful career and my freedom. And my choices. And I'll wonder, for the rest of my life, what that 10-year-old would have been like. What they would have looked like. What they would have called me. What it would have felt like to be their mother. My therapist says I need to forgive myself. Says I made the best choice I could with the information I had. Says I can't judge my past self by my current values. Says grief is normal and valid. But here's what I can't tell her. What I can barely admit to myself. If I could go back, knowing everything I know now, knowing I'd become infertile, knowing I'd regret it, knowing I'd spend my 30s crying over my nieces, knowing all of it, I still don't know if I'd choose differently, because 23-year-old me was so convinced, so ideologically committed, so sure she was right. And I can't imagine her listening to anyone. Even future her. And that's the real tragedy. Not that I made the wrong choice, but that I made a choice without really choosing. I let fear and ideology decide. I never actually asked myself what I wanted. And now, I'm here, 34 years old, infertile, successful, free, and so fucking empty, sitting in my therapist's office. She's asking what I want to work on today. I want to say inventing time travel. I want to say acceptance. I want to say moving forward. But what comes out is, I want to stop feeling like I outsmarted myself. She waits for me to explain. I thought I was so smart. Thought I had it all figured out. Thought I saw through the bullshit that trapped other women. Thought I was choosing freedom. And instead, I just chose a different cage. One where I'm free to do everything except the one thing I actually want. She nods, writes something down, asks how that feels to acknowledge. It feels like losing, like being beaten by my own younger self, like having all my certainty weaponized against me, like the universe's cruelest joke. But I don't say that. I just shrug. Say, it is what it is. Schedule my next appointment. Walk out into the bright afternoon. See a woman with a stroller. Feel that familiar ache. Keep walking. This is my life now. successful, free, and full of regret. Everything I thought I wanted, nothing I actually need. And the worst part? Somewhere out there is a 23-year-old woman, sitting in a clinic, making the same choice I made, for the same reasons, with the same certainty. And I can't warn her, can't tell her to really think about it. Can't tell her that ideology isn't the same as desire. Can't tell her that she might change. Because if I did, I'd be exactly what I hated at 23. Another voice trying to control women's choices. Another person pushing an agenda. Another obstacle to autonomy, so I stay silent, live with my choices, watch my nieces grow, succeed at work, date occasionally, exist in this strange half-life, where I got everything I fought for and lost everything I didn't know I wanted, until it was already gone.